Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codaspodi, and today's guest is Joel Rodriguez, owner of Ovation Bistro Bar, the best smokehouse in Central Florida. They are unashamedly passionate about the food and drinks they create. As a family-owned and operated business, they are always ready to serve. Their mouth-watering ribs and in-house smoked meats have earned them serious street cred among locals and visitors alike, and for good reason. They are part steakhouse, part barbecue smokehouse, with tender brisket smoked in-house daily, craft burgers, juicy steaks, and all certified Angus beef. They have 3 locations in Florida: Lakeland, Winter Haven, and Davenport. Joel and his co-owner, Fernando, come from a migrant family where they were no strangers to hard work. They both served this country in the Army in Afghanistan, and upon their return from duty, their next experiences would lay the groundwork for them to start their own business. But they didn't stop there. They also started a nonprofit to help feed Polk County, Florida residents, having donated over 30,000 meals already. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefitsagency.com. All right, now back to our guest today, the owner of Ovation Bistro Bar, Joel Rodriguez. I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
Hey, Anthony, I appreciate the invitation. I really do. I'm excited to see what to tell our story. It's always a good time.
All right, let's get right into it then, Joel. So every inspiring story has a beginning. Joel, what sparked your journey in this industry, and what moments made you realize that this was your calling?
So, previous to me finding out this was for me, I was I was a okay high school student. When I say okay, I don't mean A's and B's. I mean C. I was skating along, right? I did just enough not to get in trouble or not to be or not to fail, but I never had a real. I was just kind of getting through the days and the weeks and the years came by, and then like my senior year came up, and I was like, wow, what am I gonna do? I knew that I wasn't a person that was ready to go to college because I didn't like going to high school. I didn't like classes. I did them because it was like what I had to do, and so one day a recruiter came by the high school and hook, line, and sinker. He got me. So he told me he would take me around the world. He'd show me a lot of things. He trained me, and he did that and then some. Ended up spending almost 10 years in the Army between in two different enlistments. And it was a game changer for me. I really needed. I didn't know I needed that discipline until I had it. So I was, it was. As I go back, I was really scared. Like the night before, I remember talking to my mom, and she came to my bed, and she was like, "Son, like if you don't go, you don't. It won't make me, I told my mom, will you tell me what to do? Like, cause my mom kind of didn't want me to go either. And she was like, I was cooking at, Bob Evans, it's a breakfast chain. And I was in the mornings, on the weekend, and I was cooking at a steakhouse at night in the evenings. I worked 2 jobs all through my last like 2 years of high school. Once I got my car, so she told me, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. I was like, well, so it was a long night. I didn't sleep, and the recruiter there to pick me up at 3:30 in the morning. So I laid in bed. We had to be at the Tampa Met station. I'd say around 5, and it was a good hour drive. But of course, he wanted to leave some time in there. So just laid in
So
bed. Just
you were pretty nervous.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I was.
Initially you were excited about this. Oh,
Yeah,
he's going to show me the world. He's going to teach me all these things. But
yeah.
then as it gets closer to it,
It gets real. It
yeah.
gets real, and you got your stuff packed. I mean, you got a bag, and it gets real. Now,
What do you
I
think you were
was
most nervous about?
I was the most nervous about my physical condition because I wasn't an athlete. I was, I worked, and I had a nice size midsection. I had asthma. Come to find out, I was diagnosed 20 years later. Which did help me not be able to run. We were very we had very meager means, and going to the doctor and getting and seeing doctors, that wasn't something that we did. So I dealt with it. I couldn't breathe well, and that's just something I dealt with. I didn't, I,
You said you came from meager means. Kind of paint a picture for us. What
yeah.
was it
So
like growing up?
so both of my parents, when I was younger, were they worked in the fields of the orange groves in the winter here, and then in the summers we would travel. We would migrate to New York or Indiana, wherever there was work, and we would pick vegetables and apples in New York. We would do tomatoes in Indiana, squash in New York or Ohio, like wherever there was a farm that needed help. We would live on site on the farm, and we would just go out every day. If it was daylight, we were working. Then when it got dark, we racked it up, went and showered up, and ate dinner, and then we did it again. Did it all summer. I was working the fields at 12, 11, 13, 14. And it
Wow.
just, yeah, it just, it was
Physical labor, real
it's
hard
physical
work.
labor, and
Yeah.
it's not hard, but it's just
Okay.
tedious, right? It's just tedious going up and down. Like sometimes I would have like a hoe, and I would just hoe the plants, and I would just hoe around to get all the weeds out. I would just go right down the road, and it's just like I mean, it's just 12 hours, 11 hours.
Same
It's not
thing over and
hard.
over
It's
again. Yeah.
mental. Like I remember I found a way to escape in my mind, and I don't know what it's called when you foreshadow something later on in my story, but this is when I realized that I could do that. I could actually leave my body and just focus on something else. Like I would watch, the Simpsons episode the night before in my mind as I was hoeing, or I would watch a movie, and it would just, and I realized I could do it, and it was like nothing. I was like, oh man, I already did this whole acre here, these whole 2 acres, and it blew by because I was entertained, you know.
Wait, say more about this, Joel. Like,
So also it was
is this
like I
something
didn't
somebody
realize I was.
taught you, or you just
No,
sort of
no, no. It's
stumbled
just I just
across this
like
ability?
I just because we didn't have like this is back in the late '80s, the early '90s, and so there was no iPhone or like what are the Google glasses they got now? So they got all this stuff now, but I just but in my mind I could remember the show last night, because we would get home and we would watch, the Simpsons was on at 6:30 or 7. That's about the time we're showering up, we're eating, we're getting ready and for bed, and that was our show. So I used to watch it. It used to be on. I think it used to be on an hour, maybe hour and a half. Like the Simpsons were like, poo and I think the Simpsons are still on actually, which is pretty incredible for the Simpsons. But yeah, and it was just funny, man. It was a funny show. We used to all watch it. The family would sit around the TV. But well,
And
so
so
the
you
next
could see the
I
whole
could I could
episode
see the whole
replay in
episode in
your
my
head.
mind again, right? Or a movie, or like I had to, and I would, and I'm still doing my task. I'm still getting the job done. I wasn't slacking there, Anthony. I was working, but I could transport myself, and that made the days and the weeks tolerable. As I helped the family, right? Because it was a summer. I was in school. I never missed school. Like school was very important to my parents, but I never missed school for work. But in the summers and on the weekends and where I could, we would help, man. Like, and that's in our culture to help. Like, my dad would help his dad, even though he had his own family and so forth and so on. So everybody just
So you
helped each other.
learned hard work from your parents at a very early
Oh, very
age.
early, yeah. And I see my dad, and like, so I'd be done. He'd get us out. He'd get me out early, so I could go play basketball. There was a barn that had a basketball hoop on it. He'd get me out early. He'd just come by, school me. All right, you're done. Come on. Everybody else. I was like, everybody leaving. No, just you. and so he gets it because he saw the kids out there playing, and he'd send me, he'd get me home. He was it's kind of he was a crew leader, so he counted like the number of pints or baskets that each person would do themselves. Like in the orange groves down here, they call them a chivero, and that because
Chief.
the goat is the big truck that has the claws that gets that has like gets the orange buckets. He scoops them and he picks them up and then dumps them in his thing, and that's called the goat. And the goat in Spanish is chivo, so they just called him. He's the goat or he's the chivero. So he drove the bus. He picked everybody up in the morning. He had to make sure he had ice water in the back of the bus. He had his posters very good for for the labor laws and stuff like that. And so he did that. And I mean, so I used to go out and pick oranges too on the weekend. I'm gonna fast forward to when I'm in high school now. So we did that all through my elementary years, right? Summer,
Yeah.
boom, we just find a time to go, boom, and we didn't go every year if the harvest wasn't going to be big and there was no need, or if there wasn't going to be no other families that were coming, it was just all single migrant workers. And he's like, there's nowhere for us to stay. Sometimes they had. It depended on the farm. Sometimes the farm had like individual like trailers, and that each like families could live in. And sometimes they just had kind of like a barracks or a dorm with a centralized kitchen with a bunch of stoves and refrigerators around it, and they have rooms. And when there was situations like that, then we wouldn't go. We would just stay here. My mom would get a job in the kitchen somewhere. Sometimes I would follow, and we just cut grass and stuff to maintain. But so I remember you one year the fast. So we did this throughout my childhood. So I was no stranger to hard work, but I didn't think it was. I thought it was normal, right? Because that was my reality. My reality was, this is what we do to make money, like ends, and I know other people did other things like the banker. He typed on his computer and he had the keys of the safe, and I could see that big old safe and went in there to cash our checks on Friday, right? So I know the people did other things, but I know that's what we did, and I was okay with it. Truth be told, I was a little ashamed in school that we had to do that, but that in the long run, it was the best blessing that I could ever gotten.
So at that point, did you feel like these were two separate worlds and you were kind of always be in this one and not
Yeah,
have
exactly.
access to
Right.
the
That's
other?
exactly how I felt. Like I knew that other people didn't have to do that, and they got to go to camp. I was well, and I would lie, in the seventh, sixth grade, seventh coming back. I was like, where were you? Oh, I was at summer camp. We was here. We was at the Bahamas. I would just tell the whoppers, but really I was up in the fields working, especially if I came home late because the season didn't end on time and we got here a week or two late, before after school started. Little friends like, "Where were you at, man? We've been in school 2 weeks already." I said, "Oh man, our vacation was just crazy." Honestly, I was like, we were just trying to scrape enough money to get back down. But
Isn't
yeah.
that
So
something, Joel, that the things that you used to be ashamed of are now the things that you give so much credit to for where you are?
and I'm most proud of too. Like my we didn't have we didn't have to work as hard as we did, right? But my dad was always trying to get us ahead and trying to move us out of it was horrible. We lived my first recollection was like a duplex of our home when I was like 4, 5, 6. I remember it was like because there was always somebody right next door, and I could hear him. And there was another kid next to him. I'd knock on the wall. He would knock back, and I remember that. Then we moved to like a different part of the town. We had our own house. It was a single door house. It was very meager, but still it was nicer, right? We rented that one. Had a convenience store right next to it, so he would come back with a bag of Doritos and a can of bean dip. I tell you what, I was in heaven, man. It was the best thing ever when we got home from work. I remember those things. I just remember him also never being home, like when he was working. Like he would like leave before I was awake, and he'd come home well into the evening, 7, 8 at night. Uh, Then he sit there and he had to count up his cards and his tallies to for all the guys who were working. He started off as a picker, and then he got, they promoted him to be the crew lead. And then we moved, and then we bought a property next to my grandfather's. Then we upgraded again. We got a big trailer, a big double wide, with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. That was pretty cool because our other one only had one. Both of the previous ones, I remember seeing like, wow, there's 2 places I can go to the bathroom. I was like 7 or 8. That was a
You
big
live in a
freaking deal.
palace now.
That was a big
Yeah.
house. We had a yard finally, and so and
And how many of you were there? It's you, your
there was so
parents.
there was myself, my younger brother, Fernando, my other younger brother, whose name's Eric, and my baby sister, who was 10 years my junior. Uh, she was kind of like, I tell her this, she was the whoopsie, but but now as a grown up, like, we have a great relationship, all 4 of us. So yeah, man. So we worked through, and then, and where was I? So now we're back in high school, and on the weekends, I mean, I was like, Dad, I need to. I said, you give me a spot. And some days he would let me go pick, and it depends on my report card. It depends on how I was acting at the house, because he knew if I could go pick, that's easy money for me. I wasn't the fastest, but $50 is $50. When you're 14, 15, you take that. So I remember one time I was I'm not gonna say I'm the most straight shooter ever, but one time I was picking a row, like a row of oranges, and I was doing really good because they were small trees, right? It all depends how much you can pick. Was the landscape. If they're a big tree, then you have to get a ladder to get to the oranges at the very top, right? You have to make it a hook to hook them off and drop them. You got to go down and collect them. Or if you had like a tree that was smaller that blossomed earlier, and they were like 7 feet tall, right? And they were they were blooming with oranges everywhere. I mean, you'd make a killing, right? So that's the kind of row I had. I was doing good. I mean, I knocked out 2 tubs, 2 tubs before lunch, and I was a 3, 4 tub kind of guy all day, right? So, but then but the trailer where he dumped the right. So I'm gonna set this up for you, Anthony. The guys would pick into their bag, right? They would go to the bag and drop it in the tub. It was a big circular tub. I don't know how many gallons there. I don't know. It's big though. You could fit like 20 people in it standing up, or
Oh my
maybe
gosh,
15. So it's a pretty big
that's
tub.
huge.
Yeah, right. So then you would
And
dump
you're
your
supposed to
bag.
carry this tub?
No, no,
You're
no, no,
dragging it
no.
around?
You carry your bag and then you take it and you dump your
Oh, got
bag
it. Okay.
on the tub, and then you unleash it, and the bottom opens up and your oranges fall in. Then
Okay.
you strap it back. Then you go back and you pick more. And the faster you can do it, the better, right? It's the faster, more. So I was doing great, and I was like, man, I don't know. I couldn't have been 15. Maybe I was 16. No, I wasn't 16 yet because I didn't have a car yet. So uh, he put me where I was beside the where then the tub's full, right? Then he comes with the goat that I spoke about earlier, and he gets the claw. He claws it. He dumps it in the goat, which carries, I don't know, like 20 or 30 of them tubs. Then he goes into the trailer that's out there in the field, parked somewhere, and it's up on hydraulics. It lifts up and it opens up on the side, and he dumps it into the trailer, right? So, and then the trailer starts to, and then he can go back and forth, and kind of he levels out the oranges, and that's the process. Then the truck driver comes back up, takes the trailer, and then it goes to get processed. But in the back, there's a lever that opens up the bottom switch, so that way they can fall out, and then they're lifted up at the plant, the orange grow plant, right? And I was right beside it, and I looked at it, and I was like, man, that sucker looks like there's a lot of. It was almost full. It was full. So I figured I could just open the lever up, dump a couple like bags, and then close it back, and then go dump my bag into the thing. Right, trying to cheat,
Right. That's right.
because that was the easiest way. And I was like, he won't notice that I'm killing it today. I already got 2. I'll get 2 more. Maybe I'll get 5 today. I think they were going for, I don't know, $10 a barrel. So I was like, man, I'm gonna bang out 50. I might get 60. So I go to the back. I opened it up, and it's hard. I mean, it's a big trailer, right? So I pop it open, I fill up, boom, boom, and then I close it. I said, oh, and I can't, right? And I close it, and
Can't close it.
I can't close it, right? I didn't realize that the pressure behind it, like the flow, would not let it close. So there's no way it's gonna close. So now I have to sit there and wait, because God forbid I let that whole freaking that whole trailer of oranges that people already picked go on the ground. So I'm just holding it. The thing
Oh,
is
geez.
super heavy on my back, like it's dragging me down. I'm holding it up, and I start yelling, "Dad, Dad!" And he can't hear me. It's a big. I don't know how many acres it was. I
Yeah.
mean, 30, 48, 50 acres, 100 acres. I don't know how big it was. It's humongous. But he couldn't hear me, so I just had to wait. I'm sitting there.
So this was your penance for trying to cheat the
I'm
system.
trying to tell you, man. I was thinking right there, and I was like, man. And again, I went back in my mind. And I was just like, man, what am I gonna do tonight? Forever, like thinking about the basketball game. I used to play basketball in high school, like just like for fun, not on the team or nothing. But I was just thinking about stuff, and then finally he pulls around, he pulls out. He's like, and he put my hands down. Still, I took me right back. I couldn't put my hand down. I was like, let me put my hand back down. But he came up. He's like, "Man, were you sure smart, huh?" I said, "Dad, I thought I was gonna." He started laughing. He started cracking up. He went. He was like, "You tired?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah. Help me push it back." He said, "That thing can't go back." He says, you're gonna have to walk with the trailer back to the plant." And I said, "I can't do that." He said, "Well." So he said, so he laughed. He walked away, and I was like, "Dad, Dad." So he came around with the trailer, and he got the what he did. He got the claw, the hook that hooks the
Yeah.
tubs. He's like, "Watch out, watch out." He put it right on the thing. He prayed because it had his hydraulics. So he just closed it shut. I just remember seeing all the juice come out of the bottom, like because he just smashed so many oranges right there.
Oh, geez.
And then he's like, "All right, close it." So I closed it. He said, how many how many bags you get? I said, "I got one." He's like, it's your lucky day, because I'm gonna let you keep that bag. I said, "Okay, sorry, Dad." He's like, he just drove away laughing. He never mentioned it again. I mentioned it to him, like, I don't know, maybe 30 years later, and he remembers, though. He just thought it was the funniest thing.
Oh, that's
He
great.
was he's like, he said, "You ain't that smart, huh?" I said, "Well, I never claimed to be." He's like, "You thought you could close it?" I said, "Dad, I thought so." But
Yeah.
our
So
relationship was good.
yeah, so we've sort of laid the foundation here for the great work ethic that you learned growing up from a very young age, working out in the fields. Let's fast forward to your time in the military. You said you did two enlistments. Were they back to back?
Yeah. So we made it to basic that day, and I was overweight. So there, so we're back that morning. I'm being picked up, and I had previously tried to go the week before, but I didn't make weight or the tape. And the same. So these little things that happen in your life, people don't realize how they have an altering effect. They have a ripple, right? And they just ripple throughout your whole life. So the same guy that taped me the day at the MEP station a week before, he recognized me. He said, "Back, try it again." He's right. I didn't eat the night before. I was in the sauna. I was running every day. I had to lose 10 pounds. I lost like 9. So I still had to eat taped, because you could be overweight if you taped right, if you had the right measurements,
Mm.
right? So he came to my belly, and like it had like that much on it, and it was like, so he just like, I looked at him, he looked at me, and he was like, he squeezed that sucker. He about cut my skin. He said, "All right, you're good." And he put me through, right? So that single thing that put me in basic training that evening. That let me go through, and like I said, I had asthma undiagnosed, so I started to run, and I struggled, and I think I was gonna make it just because of the physical activity that I was not used to doing, but through all the training, I just, I thought, you know, the 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 basis for my work ethic, like, and being able to put myself somewhere else. Like, you're running 5 miles, and you have asthma, and you're actually blacking out. Like, I'd fall over, and I'd get up and start running again. And after I catch my breath, and I would go somewhere. I would go somewhere, and I think all that to the time I was in the fields, all them hours and hours, like, and I could really transport myself where it wasn't a big deal, like, and it wasn't that hard, like, so I did it. I lost, I don't know, 60 pounds in basic training. I
Wow.
finally saw some muscles on my chest. I saw a little, like, six pack. I had like a two pack. The first two wasn't coming out, and I was like, "What?" I was flexing my arm. You can see the little triceps. This is crazy. So I continued on to my individualized training. I was an air traffic controller for the first 5 years, and we went to eight. So the school was like 6 months to learn how to become an ATC personnel. So every day I work out. I mean, I became that. I got the body I never had, and had a lot of confidence, and I was making money. I was sending all my checks back home because I didn't need anything. I was in training. They fed me at the chow hall, 3 times a day. I kept a couple $100 for me to go out on Saturday and then Sunday, and go out, go downtown, and go shopping or do whatever I wanted to.
But you sent the bulk of what you were earning back to
Yeah,
your
all it
family
all
because
it
you knew
all
how
went
hard
back.
stuff
Yeah,
was for
it
them.
all went
Yeah.
back. It all went back. Uh, it all went back. And I didn't have any I didn't have any. I wasn't ill will about it. Like, my parents were still, they were doing better, but they weren't quite there yet. And it really was nothing to me. Like, I didn't need it. If I needed something, I would get it. And people are like, man, but I'll tell my roommate. I said, what are you doing with your money? I said, I'm sending it all home. I said, how much you keeping? I said, I keep like $100. I said, you can pay for 2 weeks. I said, yeah, what do I need it for, man? I just need. I said, we're walking everywhere we go. I don't have I didn't have a car. I didn't have any expenses.
Yeah.
The food was there. I just, if I wanted to try to sneak in some beer money here and there, I was 18 at the time, and I would, that somebody would hook me up. The older GI walking on the pit. Hey, sorry, did you give me a beer? And it was like, kind of, it wasn't allowed, but it wasn't frowned upon. Like, you're a soldier, like, you can have a freaking beer. Like, it wasn't illegal, but it was like one of those things. Like, you go to
But
the
still,
class six.
everybody looked the other way on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of, and everybody did, and you just had to. But because if you messed up, man, your ass was in a ringer, and that's not a
Mhm.
ringer you want to be in. You know, and don't get in trouble outside the base, because that's even worse. Because you have to do your civilian punishment, the whatever for whatever, and then you get to get the UCMJ action that was levied against you when you got back on base, and that was sometimes worse. That was most times worse. Uh,
So,
so
what was the biggest thing that you learned from your first enlistment there that you were able to
Man,
carry over
the
into the
uh
Exchange restaurant?
that I, the world is very big, right? The world is
Mm.
super big, and then I'm very I'm just like a half a sand grain. I don't know. I don't know the analogy for it, but I realized that the world was really big, and that I was able to do things that I never thought I could do. I was running 2 miles in 12 minutes. I was with full blown asthma without knowing it. Uh, and I lost like a bunch of weight. I looked great. I passed. I became an air traffic controller, so I was smarter than what I thought I was. Right? I thought I didn't. I never gave myself a chance. And now my wife speaks of it because she's a professor at the University of Central Florida, and she does a lot of research to, you know, it's academic research. Like, why do some kids succeed and when some kids don't? And she says that nobody was there to advocate for me. When
Mhm.
she says I have ADHD, and I've never been diagnosed. She said, dude, I see this all the time. Like, you have ADHD, and you've never been diagnosed, and you wonder why you were in the sixth grade in school. I was in school suspension pretty much the entire year, and
Mhm.
and I did bad in school, but people still passed me though, because they didn't want me back in the class, right? I was a
Make you
disruption,
the next person's
the next
problem, right?
guy's problem. So, but the seventh grade year I did better. The eighth grade I did better, I never had a problem with that. It was a transition from elementary to middle
Mm.
school. But my wife says, like, if you had somebody to advocate for you, and that's what her research focuses on why some people are more successful than others. Uh, But the ASVAB, they kind of figured out that I'd be good at the ATC thing. So just by the way, it said I couldn't be a mechanic or an engineer. Like those two things, I was like, I don't know how gears work together, and I just
Mm.
these are jobs you can't do. You can do anything else. And I picked that one because I had a girlfriend, and the school was in Fort Rucker, Alabama. That's Lower Alabama. It's like 6 hours from where I lived then and currently, actually. So I knew on the weekends I can make a beeline home, and so that was the main reason I wanted to be a traffic controller because where the school was, it was a 6 month school, and I'd be driving distance away. Uh,
So, your first stint in the Army, how many years?
5.
5 years.
Yeah.
And were you deployed? Did you go
No,
overseas?
I went overseas, but not deployed. It was no. This is '97 to 2002, and 9/11 had just happened when I got out. I was stop loss for for like a month, and everybody would think was stop loss, but then like the next year I got out. I did go to Korea. That was a pretty awesome experience. And then when I got out and I came home, I was like, I'm going to use my GI Bill because I wanted to be a banker, Anthony. Like, because the bankers, they had the money because they had the keys to the safe, and they always wore a suit, and they always had a tie. And every time I went to the bank, we always had mud on our boots and dirt on our blue jeans, right, just to cash our check. So that was very impressionable upon me when in my younger years. I mean, we had no like, I had no financial literacy. I didn't know how to use an ATM card when I got my ATM card from the Army. Remember the first time I got it, I said, "What do I do with it? Where do I get the money?" I said, "Because I used to get my check and I just go to like, a convenience store or like a grocery store to cash it, give my money the money for the car and or whatever, and keep what I could for myself." So yeah. So what was I? So I remember the first time I pushed the card in so hard into the ATM, like I got it stuck and it wouldn't come out. So it ate it, and I had no money for that weekend. But
So
and
you used the GI Bill.
yeah, I
Did you get
used
an
the
extra
GI
story then?
Bill. Yeah. So I got out and I got. Thanks for keeping me on track. I got out. I started going to college. I was a 28-year-old. I'm sorry. 24. How was I? No, 20.
So 2002.
2002, so I was like 23, 24. And I go in there, and for the first time I went to class, I ironed my slacks. I had a long sleeve shirt ironed down, had my backpack, nice. I was still in good
You
shape.
were ready. You were going to
I was
present.
ready. I was like, this is a big day. Like, I did 5 years for this day. And I walked in, the first girl said, "Are you the new professor we're getting?" I said, "No, dude, like, I'm in class." They're like, "Oh, really?" I said, "Oh, you look like the teacher." I said, "Okay." So I looked around. Everybody's in shorts and flip flops, and it's Florida in August, so it's blazing hot. I'm sweating. I got a wool like it was insane. But like that's what I assumed it would be like, really, but it wasn't like that at all. Right? It was so I dressed like that for a couple more months just because I bought the clothes like right when I got out of the
Got to
army.
use them, right?
Gotta use them, man. So.
Yeah.
Uh, but then my cousin, who I grew up with, he went to a college right next door, and he was like, "Dude, what are you doing, bro?" I said, "Go get some shorts, some flip flops, man, and a couple t-shirts. You'll be good." I was like, really, I felt weird the first day, but I did feel more at ease because I didn't like the teacher anymore, and so I was going with the
So
college, and
what
I
were
was doing
so
I
what
was
were
doing my thing.
Yeah, go
And,
ahead. Did,
uh,
did you end up finishing or did you?
yeah, yeah, no. So I was we so I was doing my thing, and my brother was actually in college with me. He had just graduated the year before, so he went into the National Guard, and his unit just got for deployment. So we actually were in a couple classes together. We kind of planned it out. So I thought that was cool because I was a senior, he was a freshman, right? And that there was so we hung out a little bit as my senior year, but he was kind of like the hang around kid, right? He's going out to senior skip day with us. I was like, bro, you can't go to senior skip day. You're a freaking freshman. I'm gonna tell mom then if you don't take me. So I said, all right, get in the car, bro. Went to the beach, right? So, but this time, like he's grown up. I'm grown up. We're both in college. Uh, he got orders to go to Afghanistan, and his unit did, and he had already been deployed. He got deployed right after 9/11 to the Tampa airport for a year. So, and I would come and see him because it was a nice deployment, right? They got to stay at the Marriott in the airport, and they got to eat at whatever restaurant they wanted. They just did security around the airport because nobody knew really what was going on. They were just burning money, right? The DOD was. So, we had a conversation one night. We're out, we're having fun, we're having some drinks at. There's a place called Disney Springs that used to be like a club in the area. Like it was called Downtown Disney, and it's relatively close to where we lived, maybe 45 minutes, half an hour. But so we're down there. He's like, "Man, I really don't want to go." I said, I don't know if I'm gonna. I might need to hurt my back. And he was really concerned. I said, "Man, don't be concerned." I said, "Easy for you to say you did your time. You can." I said, "I'll do my time again." I said, "I'll go with you." And he's
Wow.
like, he said, yeah. He said, yeah. I said, but you got to take care of all my drinks because I hadn't been paid yet. And I said, you got to get all my drinks this weekend. So he said, all right, that's a good deal. I said, so boom. So that's how we started drinking up and took a cheers and gave a high five and a hug. And
So your
that,
brother bought your drinks, and you go to Afghanistan with
yeah.
him.
So I went that, so Monday morning, and like, so Sunday morning, he was like, "Man, that was awesome last night." Yeah, I said, that was cool, right? Boom, boom, boom. We get in, and then he's like, "Man, that's cool too about the whole Afghanistan thing." And blah, blah, blah. I said, "What? Oh yeah, you're going, right?" She's like, "Yeah, but you're going with me." I said, "I am." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You
You
said
said,
last night." I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's right, that's right. We're gonna do that." It was hazy. I didn't.
yeah,
It was foggy, but when he said it, I was like, "Oh, I did say that." I was like,
yeah.
"Wow, I did say that." So, you know, when they more talked to the commander, I said, "If I don't have to go back to basic training, and I don't have to, and I can be with them the whole year in Afghanistan, because they were losing soldiers. This is National Guard. National Guard people sign up to National Guard because they think they're going to be home, right? They're going to be, and they didn't start deploying those guys until the '90s, I think, until like Clinton years. But so he was great. He was glad to have me, and I was glad to go. I had to go. Back to Tampa Meps, and it was a little easier around the waist this time. And I got right in. I did my physical, and then we moved to Camp Shelby. I don't know, probably like a year later, 6 months later, excuse me. That first, so I went. So do you remember a couple years ago in 2004 where Florida got ravaged by like 4 or 5 hurricanes? Like the same year, they were like Charlie, then Eileen, then Irma, and then so that was the month that I signed up with the National Guard, and so I got in that Humvee, and I was like, man, I thought I was gonna go to drill once a week, and we are gonna go to because if you're mobbed active duty, it's different, right? That's what you just live it. But I didn't think I was gonna go like for that month. We were in the back of we're on a Humvee or on the back of a LTV, like just going up and down, doing guard duty, doing patrol, helping hand out water, and so that was my whole that was summer that summer.
And then, how long were you actually in Afghanistan once you
So
got deployed?
we moved to Camp Shelby, Mississippi. After that, we were there for I think 4 months, 5 months. You got all your immunizations and you did all your training. You do like they have mock cities of Afghanistan. You do all your training like your combat training, like your entry into the buildings, do all that kind of stuff on top of like the basic commands on the languages like Dari and things like that. So then we left and did the end of June, uh, '04, and we got back July 4th, 2005. So
Okay.
a year, uh, flew by. Lots of fun. I lost even more weight. I got even
Lots of
more.
fun. I haven't heard many
No,
people
well, it was a
describe
really
their
light. It was
deployment
a
to
really,
Afghanistan that
yeah,
way.
it was a really light year that year. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. We were at Camp Phoenix in Kabul, and the word had it that, of course, I didn't know anything about anything. I was, I was a specialist. I was, I was a RTO. They made me a radio transmission operator. So the big dogs were behind me, the generals and colonels, and they'd get on the horn, tell this person to do this, and I track where the units were, where different assets were in the field. But but rumor had it that the the base, the camp that was called Camp Phoenix, was owned by the biggest drug lord in Afghanistan, and so the United States Army, the DoD, was paying him rent to own. I think it was like 3 blocks. It was fortified. Like, it was just a good place. That's why they picked it, right? And there was big old, like, 1 story tall sandbags like around the whole building, like 2 high, and so it was towers everywhere, like guard towers. But so we had it, like, when I was there, it was a light. It was, I think there was a couple explosions at the front gate. Uh, but really, really a calm year. It was that was before the surge. They did the surge in Afghanistan, so it wasn't. It wasn't hot that year at all. I mean, it wasn't hot at all. Like, it was. I was like, man, we're just working out and, like, walking around the city, and, like, we just, we and the mission was a presence mission. We're just here to support, the new government, right? The one that collapsed in a matter of a day, right? We won't go into that, but that was the mission. Just, we carried around little Snickers bars for the kids. We throw them, right when they got near us, because earlier that year the kids they rushed up, they were handing out and they got through them, and the kids are grabbing anything. They're talking about impoverished people, right? So one kid, he grabbed like a live grenade off of soldiers. So we weren't allowed to hand them anything anymore, because he got it, he took it, and I mean, he was,
Wow.
that's going to be a year's salary in Afghanistan. Uh, so so we had to throw the candy, and it was sad. It was sad seeing that
Yeah,
state of
I can
of,
imagine.
of people, like, who live like that, and they just live in the mud, and I
So, Joe,
felt
I
like
want to
I
make sure we
I
give
felt
you
like I was
time here to
blessed,
talk
right?
about your restaurant. Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like I was blessed, because now I had a roof, we had water in my trailer, right? We
yeah.
had two toilets, right? These guys, so, like, everything's perspective, man. Like, so yeah. So, okay, so boom, went there, got back, went back to work at the Outback Steakhouse, where we were working. He got me a job when I got out the army. He was an assistant kitchen manager. He got me a job as a dishwasher. I became a dishwasher, and then a salad guy. I worked my way up the line. He was like, "Wow, man!" I was like, "You're really trainable. Like, how do you learn so quick?" I said, "It ain't hard, man. You just tell me what to do, and I'm gonna do it, and I'll just keep doing it, right? It's just repetition, right?" So I continued to do that, and while we were doing all this, we had I was going to college, right? So I transferred to University of Phoenix, because I knew I was going to go to Afghanistan, and I went to college there. I finished my bachelor's while I was over there, and then got back. And once I got my degree, I had one more credit, and I was like, man, what? I was like, I don't want to do it at University of Phoenix, because, dude, they're expensive, man. So so I went to the community college. I did a pottery class, and got my credit. Then I told the Outback, I said, hey, man, I got a bachelor's degree in management now. That's, you guys should make me a front of house manager. And they were like, well, we don't have a spot right now, Joel. Like, we can make you a kitchen manager. I said, I don't want to be a kitchen manager. Like, I'm articulate. I've led troops before. Now I was thinking I was smart. Stories changing in my own mind, right? And but they didn't have a spot, so I went on Career Builder. I went on Monster, any of the job boards back in 2007, right? And Longhorn called me, Longhorn Steakhouse, and they did me an interview, and they were telling me that, so I told them my story, what I was the last 10 years of my life after high school. And so he's like, oh, man, we'll give you a job. He's like, oh, man, he said, I'm a great cook too. He's like, I don't need you to cook no more. I said, you know how to cook. But I was a great cook. But he didn't. He said, the guy told me, and his name was Matt first. And this is the first guy who gave me a chance, right? Because I had the sheepskin. I had the what I thought was knowledge to manage a restaurant, but I really didn't know anything at all about managing restaurants. Uh, so it gave me a job, and and I learned. And right when I got back from Afghanistan, I met a girl who was just uh, at the end of the night where we used to make it I was a grill cook, so I used to need the reports how many steaks we sold, and she'd be the head server, and she had to give me the report so I can tally up the meat sheet. I had 50, I sold 20, I should have 30 left, right? And so I had to do that every night on a nightly basis. So she would always give them to me, and I just remember looking at her, and I was like, man. I said, you like me, don't you? She's like, what are you talking about? I said, you always like
Joel's confidence is high
no, it was
again.
it was
Yeah.
high, man. Like I was like, cause like there was always a tug. I remember like I'd like take the report, but there was like it wasn't released. Like when somebody grabs it, you release it. I got it, but there was always that little tug. Like she didn't want me to leave, so maybe we'll talk about my love story uh, on another podcast. But so we're still together all these years later.
That's
But
great.
have two kids. So in '07 we had our first baby, right? And I got back in '06. She got in '07. Like I knew like having seen the things I had seen, I wanted to. I felt like I was ready to be dad. Uh, so I became a dad in '07 in August, August 15th of '07, and I started looking. That's when I was like, man, I gotta get out this kitchen. I'm not making enough money. I think I was making $13 an hour. That's just so. I met with a guy called Matt First at Longhorn, and he gave me the biggest promotion I ever got in my life. I mean, it's from an hourly employee to somebody who's going to manage a million dollar restaurant, a multi-million-dollar restaurant.
Wow.
Went to training, right? And he worked me 55, 60 hours I was making a lot of money back then, $39,000. I mean, you couldn't tell me I wasn't the king. I mean, I was making more money than my dad. So I had to be the king, right? I worked hard at Longhorn. I did well. I transferred. I learned a lot. Well, made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I
It's
remember
part
this
of
one time.
everybody's learning process,
Yeah,
right?
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned. So one time there was this guy who his steak couldn't get right. Like, and we made him the first one, a second one, and then he didn't like how that would taste. So I went to the back and I got a ribeye loin because we had the ribeyes pre cut, right? But then when I got them off the ribeye loin, we did the prime rib, and I cut him a loin, and it was a little bigger, a little juicier, trimmed it up nice personally, and so we cooked that one. He finally liked it. I'm so pleased, right? And this is like my first week. And the waitress was like, "We're gonna charge you for that last one, right?" I said, "Yeah, I think so." I didn't. I was like, "I think so." I had the key. That was my third or fourth shift by myself, and the rest, like, I was the boss, man. That was really scary for me. And so I made him charge, but then there was a big email like, "You made me wait, for four steaks till I got the right one, and you still charge me." And then that's when I really realized that it really wasn't about the sale, right? It wasn't about the sale. It was about the customer satisfaction and the indulgence, and taking care of the people. Man, I wasted an hour of his life because he was waiting for us to get right. Now, whether the other three steaks were good or not, that's not my prerogative. It's not my concern, really. And
It's just about making the customer
must
happy.
have kept the customer happy, man. And
Yeah.
and and I took that to heart. And I've never made a mistake like that again, where I've forsaken a customer's time and or money.
That lesson
uh,
was really
I
imprinted
mean,
on you.
the
Yeah, it was
first
powerful for you.
the first week. That's my first week, and it was like I still catch it. It's still locked in my head. So
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 when did
fast
the idea to start your own restaurant come about?
so fast forward 2 years. Now my boss, who didn't have a position for me as a front of house manager at the Outback, has one, and he calls me. He wants me to meet his boss for an interview. I do. Then I get another raise. Now I'm up to 52,000 a year. Now
Wow.
I'm making 1,000 a week. Anthony, that's bananas, man.
Never
That's
seen money like that.
well,
Nobody
that's
in your
bananas.
family had.
But
Yeah.
it was good because my wife was still in college getting her PhD. We had a kid, right? We had a mortgage, and it came right on time. Uh, and so that's I leaned big on my faith when we struggled and we had to get food stamps, and at first before I got the job at Longhorn, I would take, whatever, like leftover prime rib. I would ask the manager, "Hey, are y'all gonna throw this away?" Right? He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Man, can I have it?" Right? I would take it home, and it'd be good with some ketchup on it or A1 sauce. Like, put on some bread, it'd be delicious. But so it struggled a while and continued to struggle, but it was normal having to feel like just the being able to get by, like that was normal, right? That and later on, I realized when I went back to Outback and now I'm making a little bit more money, like I start reading books about like society and like Malcolm Gladwell. He's a writer for the New Yorker. He read a couple books. I think the book The Outliers really stuck home to me, and a tipping point. I mean, I was like a sponge. I was reading them. I couldn't read them fast enough. I had them. I still got them all in my room, but now they're all on my Audible account, right? They but it was great, man. Just and I remember this one passage, this one story talks about it takes time for a family when they get here to establish themselves, right? As long as everybody does the right thing every generation, right? It'll get better. My my great granddad was actually in Texas when it became a state, or my great great, whenever they became a territory. I became there. My granddad went to World War II. I had uncles and stuff. They go to Vietnam. So we were all in the we all served our country, and we were all proud of it, right? Military, I had, and I just did my part, but everybody kept doing better, like, and then so now I was like, I
Now it was
gotta.
your turn.
Now it's my
Your
turn
turn
to
to
up the
level up.
to up the brand
Yeah.
to level up and keep doing better, and so it was. So in 2000, now where are we? We're 2013, 2012, somewhere around
So you
here,
were at
12,
now you're back at
at
Outback.
Outback.
And is this kind of when the idea for starting
Yeah, yeah,
Ovation comes
right.
about?
Because they had an IPO and they went public,
Uh-huh.
and they had so many bosses, you couldn't shake a stick at it. I mean, there was a VP of everything. There was a VP of productivity. Oh, there's a to come down and breathe down my neck on a Friday night and tell me what I can do better to be more productive when there's food like in the window that needs to be expoed out and got out to the guest. He was talking about how this shelf could be like this and this could be like this to the flow, and I was like, sir, I said, can we do this after I get that food out? He said, let me show you one more thing. I said, this is nuts. I said, we're not being productive right now. I got upset and I walked away and I got in that window and he stood there and watched me for like 10 minutes. I said, I won't be able to help you for tonight. Maybe you can come back. So I got reprimanded. He left and then so that was okay. I was like, whatever. There wasn't no skin off my back. Like you could yell at me, you scream me. I don't like. Come on,
You were
it's in the
taking care of
army.
the customers.
Yeah, that's why he didn't get. They were like, I could have done it a better way.
He
That
wanted
was
to
the
move
whole.
the shelf over 6 inches. You wanted to
Yeah,
get
that was the
the
whole
customer the
thing. He's
food
like,
on
you could have
time.
been more tactful about it, and that was what my boss said. I was like, okay, sure. Then a couple months later, I got in trouble for giving out a couple cases of bread to a church for a local charity for their they had like a soup kitchen. Then on the weekend they asked me for. I said absolutely. I just threw them. And granted, the case of bread was like $16. I think it's 15 something like on the invoice that we paid. Right, it was the nice brown Outback bread. It's fantastic bread, and I gave it to him, and then it got word back that we were giving out bread. So another church came out. So I gave a couple. So then it was like I ordered a special order just to get like 20 cases of bread in, so I could give them away. And at this point, I'm the acting managing partner in this area because she went to have a baby. The managing partner did, so I took over that role. And then they told me, you can't do that. You have to. We want you to. I said, you want me to be a part of the community, right? You wanted me to run this ship. I came in and cleaned it up because they were doing. They were. It was in chaos store. I cleaned house. I ran grill shifts a couple nights because I just didn't take somebody lipping back. I said, go home, clock out. You don't work anymore. I took over, right? I was really passionate about what I did. I did it well. But then when they started, they said you got to build a store, you got to bring all these churches around here, all the local businesses to come to. I was doing that, but I didn't do it because of I didn't submit a form to donate something to the corporate office now, right?
You didn't go through the proper
I didn't go to
channels,
proper
so they're
channels
upset.
because there's somebody who has to checklist and say okay. It's asinine, and at this point I was like, I'm done. So I told my wife I'm gonna quit. She said no, you're not. So she was in her last month of her PhD program.
Needed the money, needed the
Needed the
paycheck,
money. I
though.
couldn't
Come
quit.
on. Yeah.
She graduated and went to her first interview and supplemented my income with her first job. Actually, succeeded. She got a PhD in chemistry, and like so, she's got. We haven't increased our bills. We haven't. Everything's the same. Lottie dottie. So I said, now's the time. Now's my time. So we took a leap. There was a diner a block away from my house. Like we turned off the highway and came back to our development was back there, but like a block away on the highway there was a diner that was struggling, and I went in and we bought the diner. Uh, just to
How'd you buy
throw
the diner?
just throw it away with just credit card. It was like 10 grand. Like they were, it was struggling, and they wanted out. They wanted out of their lease more than anything, is what they wanted. So we did. Just bought it 10 grand. I got my uncle and my brother's father-in-law to invest $30,000 in this new idea. I wrote up a business plan. First of all, let me go back a little bit. So I quit. I wrote up a business plan. This is what we're gonna do. It was, and I look back at it because I still have it on my G drive, and it's evolved to not what I wanted at first, but yeah, but everything it kind of settles, right? Like it settles where it should be. Uh, so so my brother was a managing partner at the Outback Steakhouse as well. So he said, I'm going to quit too. I said, wait. I said, man, this, like, my girl's got me. Like, you're a
You
one
still got to
income.
pay your bills,
Yeah, man.
right?
So I said, so they had a program that was like a 4-day week manager that you would, if you had 5 days, right, you would lose 20% of your salary, and you would work 4 days a week. And they were just trying to, because they were hemorrhaging managers, and they didn't realize why. So they made this program a 4-day manager. So if you lose 20% of your salary, but you only work 4 days a week. And because then I was one of the managers at the hemorrhage, along with a bunch of other people left. And there's a lot of great concepts out there around the Florida area that came from old Outback
Oh,
managers.
interesting.
But
Okay. So how did you come
I,
up with the idea? Like, why was Ovation Bistro and Bar? Okay.
me and Fernando used to smoke and do barbecue competitions on the weekend. We would cook steaks, for a living, and then we used to smoke and have fun with the barbecue on the weekends, right? And I had to say this little story. Earlier that year, I took a flask into a Sonny's barbecue, and and we got kind of in trouble, like because I got caught with it. Like, you can't do that, sir. My wife's like, "Why'd you do that?" She was embarrassed. She's like, "Why'd you do that?" I was like, "Because I want whiskey, man. They don't have nothing but Bud Light in here." I was like, "I want a freaking drink." I was like, on the way home, she told me, "If you want a place that that does barbecue and sells whiskey, then why don't you make a restaurant up?" She's just mad. She didn't mean nothing by it, right? But then boom. So then we're
She
sitting
plants the
out.
seed.
Then we're sitting out. Like fast forward a couple months, we're sitting out. We're smoking a brisket. Me and my brother, we're just hanging out. We're drinking beer, and I was like, man, you know what? Because he was talking about I want to leave Outback. This before I left too. He's like, man, I'm ready to go. I said, yeah, me too. I said, you know what we should do? I told him, I said, we should do like a barbecue place, but that does like wine and does like full liquor drinks, like cocktails and like specialty coffees, like cappuccinos and espressos and macchiatos and all that stuff. We should do that and still sell steaks, but mainly be barbecue, like be like a. He's like, man, well, like a fine dining barbecue. I said, we don't want to go that far, but like nice, like casual dining, not like in saran wrap or eat with your fingers, right? Like slop, like on a paper plate, on like a cheap, like those little cheap plates, like with actual cutlery and actual like plateware. I said we could do it. And then we looked at it. We started looking on on the computer. We had just got one of the iPads, and we started looking. I was like, there's nowhere like that. It's not gonna work. I said, there's nothing like that, so it's gonna work, man. That'll be our kind of our thing, and like right. So my business school, right? I remember them saying you got to have a niche, you got to have something that nobody else is doing, bring something new. Because at the end of the day, you're just serving food that everybody can get anywhere, and right, cook it themselves. But you got to create that's something nobody else has, right? So
I'm going to interrupt just for a second, Joel, because I'm realizing that there's a pattern that I'm noticing here of Joel kind of being a little mischievous and getting himself into trouble.
yeah, man,
There was the orange truck thing. There was the detentions at school.
yeah.
There was giving bread out, from the restaurant. You took a flask into Sonny's. This is
I kind of,
Joel
and it
just
hasn't stopped,
kind of
y'all.
stirring it up a little, and it hasn't
I
stopped.
hasn't stopped. I just can't help it, man. Like that's what my
All right.
wife says. She's like, if you would have had the right mentorship and your parents would have known what they were doing, like you would have been so far along. But they just said you were bad, not because they just said you were bad because she says like you have severe ADHD and you can't. And ever since she told me this a couple years ago, and she still brings it up because both of my daughters have it, and but we treat them and they're well controlled, right? Like that's how I do that's how I work. Like I
Yeah,
open up my tabs and my emails, and it's just like there's all these tabs. I'm doing payroll on one thing, send an email about this. I have a catering event.
bouncing back and
I'm about
forth.
back
Yeah.
and bounce and forth. It's so satisfying not to be stuck in the zone, right? Like it's satisfying. So so back to that night, right? And he was like, "Nah, no way." I was like, "Yeah, bro, I think we can do it." So I got on my laptop and I started typing away. I was like, man, yeah, this was right. It was a basic menu, and they was like, we're gonna do it, man. And then with the bread incident, and then with my wife graduating, everything kind of was falling in place. And it was like, I gotta like, this is my one time up at bat. I gotta swing. I gotta go for the home run. My wife was really supportive. She's like, babe, whatever you want to do. Uh, so we did it, man. Like we pulled off, and I wrote this 50 letter of business plan with graphs and like demos of the area, and and I sent it out to people. Only two people I knew had money. My brother's father-in-law and my uncle, who owned a construction business in Houston, Texas. He still does. Uh, so they were wanting to give me, I asked for 50 grand. I think I could do something with it. Now I look back at the amount of investment they gave me, it was nothing. They both cashed out really good, and I was happy to do it too, when they were ready to be bought out. But yeah, man, we got going, and that's what kind of our deposit. Like we bought the old equipment in there, and they got them out of their lease, and they left, and we remodeled with a handyman. Like we did all the painting, we did all the electrical. I popped my finger one time when I was touching wires that I shouldn't have been. But we figured it out and we pushed through it, and we got open. We got open probably it probably took me like 8 months to get open. So I didn't know how to get a license. I didn't know how to apply for it. Like I had to figure it out, and it was just like constantly figuring it out. And then actually it got to the point where I thought it would take like 3 or 4 months, but it was like 8 month out, and so I had to make it a job to supplement my income. And so I went and got a job at a wing. I looked on Monster really quick. I went and did one interview. The dude hired me, and I was at a wing, one of the wings, one of the restaurants that were really prevalent, back then. It was a wing house, and they paid me really well. And I was like, man, I don't do nothing, because at the wing house they don't want you to talk to the guests. At the wing house, they want you to basically be the bodyguard for the girls, make sure that you counted the money, do inventory, do your spreadsheets, do your inventory. It was the easiest manager job I had. I come from Outback and Longhorn when they were in your tail about touching every table, talking to everybody, agreeing out the community. You just got to be you just got to be back in the cut. You got to be watching. That was their mantra. But
So what was the opening day for your first restaurant?
So,
Do you remember?
so we incorporated in September 12th of 2014, and we opened. We finally got open. But we started doing this in the early summer, the end of spring. Finally, I forgot how I incorporated. I used I forgot what that website is. That it's like a suite. You just call them, and they do businesses for you. I don't know.
There's a bunch of them out there, but you
Yeah.
got
So
registered.
yeah, I got
You opened the
registered. They did all
doors,
of
and
it
what was
for
that
me.
first day like? How many people came in the door?
So we had a friends and family, right? Because I've been through Outback openings and Longhorn openings, so had a friends and family. We tried it out. We messed up a lot. I remember like the baked beans were so freaking spicy hot that nobody ate them, And so that's what you do right during that time. I thought they were delicious, and so did my brother, so did my mom. But then we had to realize the palate should be geared for our customers, which are the gringos, right? The Caucasian was the predominant ethnicity around here, right? And that's what we were shooting for: barbecue, hamburgers. It wasn't a Mexican place. So did that. We opened up the first week of in January, and it's the middle of season down here. And I'm coming from Outback and Longhorn, and they're getting the business right. They're it's busy. We opened up, there was nobody came. A week later, nobody came. We have a couple people show up, like, you guys open? Like, what are y'all doing, right? So we struggled. We struggled for an entire year, basically. We were doing $500 in sales. This is open from 11 to 11. I mean, we had a
What
bear
did you eventually figure out, Joel, that sort of flipped the switch and got people coming in the door?
So the thing is that we still did it the right way. We didn't cut corners, Anthony. So what we realized looking back is that we were so slow. It was an advantage to us because we perfected everything about every recipe. We make everything ourselves, right? So we had the time to do that, and we had the time to just adore every table that was in there. I made sure I made a couple visits at the table. The server we had on, we just had one bartender, two servers on most nights. It wasn't nobody. I would open the kitchen in the morning as a KM. A lunch cook would come in. I'd float back and forth at lunch. In the evening, I'd have a second grill guy come in, a kitchen guy. Those two would work it with my help, and I'd be in the front and the back. And I would close the dishwasher at night, have a couple front of house people, and we're full service with cutlery and glasses, wine glasses. It's a full service restaurant, and we just had to say. I mean, my payroll used to be like $900 every week. It was nothing. And so we took advantage of the slowness to just perfect standards. I had a bunch of my MIT stuff from Longhorn and Outback still at my house. So I just, I didn't copy anything, right? I just benchmarked a lot of stuff that they were already doing, and I had the time. So our reviews were like, they were climbing up the roof, and like that back in the day back then it was TripAdvisor. It was like kind of, now it's Google. Everything's Google now, but back then in 15, it was TripAdvisor was the big thing. They would rank the restaurants in each town. I remember I looked, well, man, we're 25, out of 140 or something, and then we were like 17, and then we were 2, and then we're the number 1 restaurant in Davenport, and that was kind of the hot dog, and that was like about the 9th, 10th month mark, and that was like October, November, which is a slower month in this area, right before the boom hits. So then we did things like whatever I could do to bring them in. We did trivia, we did bingo. Come in and try the food, man. And the food was so good. People were like blown away. Oh, this is not a bar. This is not bar food. I said, no, we smoke this sucker all day, and like we do the rub. We make our own rub. We make our own recipes. We make the the meat seasoning. We do the pork seasoning. We create it from scratch. I remember my brother took like 2 weeks to make the rub, the brisket rub. I was like, dude, make the freaking seasoning already. Like, wait, oh, it's not right. It's not right. I need to add a little of this. And he would have a big Lexan lid, and he would just he'd write on it and have little pockets of seasonings. Like, what do you think about this for chicken? What do you think about this for pork? And I sit there eating seasoning. I don't know, cook something. I got really tired of eating like steak. Like, stop doing. I'm tired of tasting this stuff. So like hand created, he must have wasted $1,000 we didn't have in like sample packets of seasonings. We had the time to experiment. So I never went back to the 4-day manager. So he worked 4 days at Outback, and he worked 3 days. I can't at 3. I guess I got to show you because I don't know why I got to show you, but he worked 3 days at Ovation, and then I worked 7 days. Like, so we both worked 7 days a week. He's not a very talkative person, so I do a lot of like these things. We had a couple interviews on TV and stuff like that, and he doesn't ever want to be involved. He's like, do whatever, bro. I don't want to talk to nobody. He's an introvert, which works well for me because they used to call me Iron Lungs in the military, and not because I could run, right? Because that boy,
You got the gift of gab.
I got the
Joel.
gift of gab, my man.
Okay, so from humble beginnings, 3 locations now. As we wrap up here, Joel, what does the future look like for Ovation?
Oh man, the future looks good. It's the economy's kind of tough. We have seen a slump the last 2 years. We're holding strong, and we've actually expanded, and we've opened a different brand of restaurant just to kind of wet our feet and kind of still the same type of service, but it's called the Social on Cypress, and it's
The Social on Cypress.
right, and it's a it does Mexican food because that's what we want to pivot to, right? So it's the Mexican food, and it's kind of sports bar, TVs all over the place, nice American dishes, like really inexpensive, not that place where you're gonna, we're like $15 a head, but food made fresh, and that's kind of what the market is kind of demanding right now. They want to go out to eat, they want to have a beer, they don't want to pay $10 for it, they want to pay $4 for it, right? They don't want to pay a $20 sandwich, they want to pay for like an $8, $9, $10 sandwich, and that's what we're giving them, right? So all the beef at Ovation is really expensive to source, so we can't we have to charge what the appropriate percentage, and so it's doing great. We're opening our 5th restaurant right now. Currently, we should be open in a matter of. The goal is March 1. It's being built now. That's
March
gonna.
1 of 2025. We're recording this at the end of January 2025. What is the name of the restaurant and the location going to be?
It's in Davenport, and it's gonna be called Margaritas Cocina Mexicana. So Margarita is my mom's name. I'm sorry, I don't think I've mentioned her name. She's been the reason that I get the drive and the tenacity from. But it's in her honor. We're opening a Mexican restaurant and doing all her recipes that we grew up on as a kid, and some obviously some other Mexican fanfare that's really gonna go over well. It's gonna be polished. It's gonna be like Ovation did barbecue, right? They just polished it a little bit, shined it up. This is what Margaritas is going to do to Mexican food. It's going to be shined. It's not going to look like you're at a Chi-Chi's in the 80s. It's going to be nice and polished, almost, a little sophisticated, but nice food, nice tequilas, and an awesome service, and that's kind of our focus now. Everything we have a great team on staff, and they're holding me down while we're building out here and getting the Eco Lab installed and getting the Coke in there to get their product in there, getting the construction guys to be on time, the bathrooms get redone, the bars getting redone. So it's going to be.
Joel, we'll have to have you back on after the restaurant's been open for a
Oh
little
man,
while,
it's going
so
to
we
be
can get
great. Yeah, we
updates
should
on
be
it.
open soon. We'll be right at Davenport at 45653 on US Highway 27 in Davenport.
We'll make sure we include that in the show notes.
Thank you.
Joel, we've covered a lot of great ground here today. Shared a really amazing story from humble beginnings, learning really hard work, serving your country in the military, coming back and learning, getting promoted, showing yourself how smart you are, building up your confidence, starting your own restaurant, struggling those early months, but focusing on that time to really dial in and make sure that you got the recipes and the service and
Yes, sir.
all the accessories like really dialed in correctly. And I think the proof's in the pudding. Now you're opening up your 5th location, so I think that speaks volumes to what you're doing. So, Joel, thank you for sharing your story today. I want to be the first one to show my appreciation for you sharing your time and your energy today.
I appreciate that, Anthony, and thank you again for the invitation. It's been my pleasure, and thanks for taking me down a trip down memory lane. I mean, she was really mad at me when they got me with that flask. I mean, I appreciate it, brother. You have a great day.
Joel stirring the pot and getting in trouble. Great things came from it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.